June 6, 1944. The gray light of dawn breaks over the English Channel. Out of the mist, the largest armada in human history appears. More than 7,000 ships carrying 130,000 men are bound for the beaches of Normandy. Above them, 20,000 aircraft roar overhead. And in the dark skies before dawn, thousands of paratroopers drop into occupied France. This is D-Day, the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. But it was not inevitable. Behind this day lies years of debate, months of planning, and the courage of countless ordinary men and women. By late 1943, the Allies were winning the war, but victory was far from guaranteed. In the East, the Soviet Union bore the brunt of the fighting, losing millions of men as it pushed back against Hitler's armies. Joseph Stalin demanded that his allies open a second front in the West to relieve the pressure on his forces. In the West, Winston Churchill was cautious. He feared a head-on assault would end in disaster. Instead, Britain had pushed through North Africa and into Italy, a slow, grinding campaign that never brought them closer than Naples. Franklin Roosevelt, too, had hesitated. Was America ready for such a vast operation? By the end of 1943, he decided, yes. To end the war quickly, the Allies must strike directly into France. At the Tehran Conference, the decision was made. The Western Allies would invade Nazi-occupied France in 1944. The world's future would turn on the success of this gamble. Hitler had long feared such an invasion. As early as 1942, he ordered the construction of the Atlantic Wall, a chain of fortifications stretching nearly 4,000 miles from Norway to Spain. Millions of tons of concrete, endless bunkers, minefields, and coastal guns transformed Europe's western coastline into a fortress. But defenses could not be everywhere. The Germans believed the most likely invasion point was Calais, the shortest distance from Britain. That assumption would shape everything to come. In January 1944, Dwight D. Eisenhower arrived in London. The American general, calm under pressure and skilled at uniting allies, was chosen as supreme commander of the invasion, codenamed Operation Overlord. His ground commander was Britain's Bernard Montgomery, the hero of El Alamein, admired by his men but notorious for his ego. Together, they made a bold decision. Instead of Calais, the invasion would strike at Normandy. Its beaches were farther from Britain, but less fortified. And if secured, the Allies could push toward Cherbourg, Caen, and eventually Paris. Planning an invasion on this scale required unprecedented innovation. Engineers designed vast floating harbors, called mulberries, to be towed across the channel and anchored off the beaches. Floating docks, breakwaters, and steel pontoons would allow thousands of tons of supplies to flow into France without capturing a port. Specialized tanks, nicknamed Hobart's Funnies, were created. Mine-clearing tanks, bridge-laying tanks, even flamethrower tanks to burn out bunkers. Training exercises in Cornwall and Scotland rehearsed every scenario, though accidents cost hundreds of lives even before D-Day. In France, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the famed Desert Fox, inspected defenses. He demanded millions of mines, beach obstacles, and flooded fields to trap paratroopers. Rommel believed the invasion must be defeated on the beaches before Allied air power paralyzed German movements. His superior, Field Marshal von Rundstedt, disagreed, preferring to keep armored divisions inland. Hitler refused to choose between them, leaving German defenses divided. By spring 1944, southern England had become a giant armed camp. Over 1.5 million American soldiers joined British and Canadian forces. Villages overflowed with uniforms. Families were relocated to make room for camps and airfields. Tensions flared at times. British rations were meager compared to American supplies. But friendships and romances blossomed too. Never before had the island held so many people preparing for a single purpose. For the soldiers, many barely out of high school, the wait was agonizing. Letters home, endless drills, and the looming knowledge that many would not return. Army cameramen recorded as much as possible. Young, uncertain, but determined. The invasion was set for June 5th, but as ships prepared to sail, a fierce storm swept the channel. Eisenhower faced a terrible choice: delay and risk German detection, or gamble on the weather. His meteorologists predicted a brief break on June 6th. After a tense night, Eisenhower made the call: "We go." That decision would change the course of history. On the night of June 5th, thousands of paratroopers boarded planes. Eisenhower personally visited the U.S. 101st Airborne Division, smiling and joking with the men, masking his own tension. Hours later, he wrote a letter accepting full blame if the invasion failed. In every camp and port, soldiers prayed, sang, or sat in silence, waiting for dawn. At 3:15 a.m., Allied bombers struck German defenses. Naval guns thundered at dawn. Then, the landing craft went in. The British stormed Sword and Gold beaches. Canadians hit Juneau. Americans landed at Utah and Omaha. Resistance fighters sabotaged railways and bridges to block German reinforcements. Utah was taken quickly, but Omaha became a slaughter. Strong currents scattered the landings. German guns remained intact. Soldiers waded ashore under machine gun fire, drowning in the surf or cut down on the sand. The beach became known as Bloody Omaha. Commanders considered pulling back, but the men refused to quit. Inch by inch, they clawed their way forward, breaking through by sheer will. Elsewhere, progress was faster. By nightfall, 5 Allied beachheads stretched across Normandy. The Atlantic Wall had been breached. The cost was staggering. On D-Day alone, over 10,000 Allied soldiers were killed, wounded, or missing. The Germans lost nearly as many. Civilians, too, suffered from heavy bombardments. But the sacrifice had not been in vain. The Allies now had a foothold in Europe. In the weeks that followed, battles raged through Normandy. By late August, Paris was liberated. The road to Berlin lay open. June 6, 1944, was not just a battle. It was a turning point in history. Ordinary young men, many still teenagers, faced impossible odds and changed the fate of the world. Today, their courage reminds us that freedom is never free. It is won, often at a terrible cost.